So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us today on an update from URISA, the efforts that URISA is doing in the Next Gen 911 environment. Before we begin, I just want to let everyone know that this webinar is being recorded and all attendees have been put on mute for quality assurance purposes. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A button that's located in the bottom of your screen. We will answer any questions after the end of the presentation. All of these sessions for the entire event are being recorded and will be posted to the Datamark YouTube channel the week of April 6th. We have to do some processing. Also, following this presentation, the next presentation is coordination, collaboration, and collection, NG9-1-1 grassroots movement in Mississippi. We also have, after that, a really great panel discussion, collaboration for Next Gen 911, a state perspective. We've got some GIOs, some statewide 911 directors, all going to be joining that conversation. We also have a call taker dispatcher liability discussion, and the final session for today is options and functionality contained in a Next Gen 911 logging recorder. So those are the sessions that are coming up through the rest of the day. I would like to introduce you to myself. I am Carrie Brennan. I am the Director of Client Relations here with the Datamark team. I also wear a second hat in that I am the current president of URISA. With us today, we also have Catherine Cargo, who is with the GIS team at Orleans Parish Communications District in New Orleans, also a URISA past president. And then we also have Ian Von Essen, who is in Spokane, Washington, who was the GIS manager for Spokane County and has just recently retired. Both Catherine and Ian are very active on the URISA Next Gen 911 task force that is looking at ensuring that GIS professionals have what they need in terms of the rollout of Next Gen 911. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Catherine and Ian.
Thank you, Carrie. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. I want to just start by thanking Datamark for putting together this this workshop, this conference, virtual conference. It's my first one, so please excuse any bumbles that go along, but it's pretty exciting. I love that we're all being dragged forward despite everyone's having to work from home. And I wanted to talk to you guys today about the 2020 update from URISA International of the activities of the GIS, NG9-1-1 GIS task force that URISA started a few years ago. I wanted to give you a little context from when this whole idea got started. It started, well, we've been coordinating with Nina at URISA for many years. Some of you may remember the Street Smart and Address Savvy conferences that we held for about 15 years that started because of census, the 2000 census, and just kept going because 911 and GIS were both concerned with finding good addresses, locating calls for service, and it was kind of the perfect matchup. Next Gen 911 really exposed to public safety professionals that the need for good mapping data. And with the advent of all of the mapping that was going to be needed to support the Next Gen 911, we knew that, that call centers and 911 centers were going to be both large consumers and producers of GIS data. So we knew that we wanted to try to get ahead of the curve and make sure that both the GIS community was prepared for what was coming down the road, and also that the public safety people could engage their GIS folks and have them help with the mapping that was coming with NextGen. We knew it was going to require close coordination. So often people didn't even know their 911 folks by virtue of the fact that most communication districts are separate, or in Louisiana anyway, they are separate from other organizational structures. And so we knew that you may not even know the director of your 911 center as a GIS person. So we were encouraging folks to reach out to them, to just say, hey, I'm the GIS person for the city, or whatever your situation was, and please please use me if you have questions about how you want to set up your GIS. On the other side, we wanted to make sure that NG9-1-1 folks were aware that they may have resources within the city, although not within their specific agencies, and could reach out to those folks. So we were trying to encourage the networking. The other thing that really got the task force off and running was back in 2016, a coalition of different organizations were looking at the timeline for implementing NG9-1-1 and thought that there perhaps should be a little bit more emphasis put on let's get this moving, let's get this done. And so they came up with NG9-1-1 now. And they wanted to try to get NG9-1-1 implemented by 2020. At the time, we had 4 years. It seemed like a great idea. We're in 2020 now. We're closer to implementing NG9-1-1 throughout the country. It's by no means complete. There's still a lot of questions, but that to me says that we still have a lot of work to do with getting the GIS portion of NG9-1-1 set up, and we wanted to say that ERISA was here. Oops. We wanted to say ERISA was here. We established a task force. There were some very forward-thinking people, Carrie Brennan, Sandy Stroud, a number of folks, Dan Miller, who's the current chair of the task force, and some really outstanding folks, Rachel Rodriguez in California, and her name has just escaped me. I'm sorry. Anyway, but they've been working very hard as trying to lead the Next Gen 911 task force for ERISA. And ERISA's done its part by setting up a lot of different ways for folks who are either NG9-1-1 folks who are looking for answers and had questions, or for GIS folks who were being asked to support this whole different world of 911. And we thought that the task force would be the way to communicate the assistance that they might need. Ian, if you want to jump in anytime and offer your comments on this process, you're just tell me to be quiet for a second, okay?
I certainly will. You're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you. Okay, great. So when Carrie asked me to talk about the task force, I agreed, because I was one of the folks who helped to launch it, and I think that it's been a very good thing. That's not the right word I want to use, but it's been a very helpful thing to a lot of the members. In addition to setting up a section on our webpage, the ERISA, www.urisa.org webpage, we also have the ERISA Connect community, which is an area where you can go in, you can post questions, you can post documents, sharing files, sharing questions, sharing webinars. It's one way that ERISA communicates with the community by advertising different items of interest, webinars that we produce, where we post our frequently asked questions. It's been a great launch. We launched it I think in January, Carrie, if I'm not mistaken, and it's free to every ERISA member, and we encourage folks to check it out often because it does change, and hope that folks find value in using this and connecting with folks that you may not otherwise encounter in your daily working situation. A little bit further dive into what we've actually been working on. We have, since December, produced 2 webinars, and Melissa Liebert was the person I meant to mention earlier. Kept wanting to call her Michelle. I knew that wasn't right, but Melissa Liebert's also been a great participant and contributor to the NG 9-1-1 task force. Really appreciate all she and Rachel's efforts to put together these webinars that we've done. They are recorded, so if you are a ERISA member and can go to the Connect, you can see these webinars even if you weren't able to participate in them. These were free to members. We're really just trying to get the word out and encourage folks that you don't have to go alone, right? It's GIS and 911, while they're very concerned with having good data to locate people or locate items in the case of GIS, they didn't necessarily naturally go together. And our emphasis on the collaboration side of what we want to present to both GIS small p professionals and to the NG 9-1-1 community. We're trying to really bring that to the forefront here by way of using the ERISA Connect portal. Looking forward into the year 2020, if possible, we'd like to do the GIS Pro 2020 annual conference. Everything's kind of on hold right now. At this point, ERISA is still planning on going forward with that. If that changes, we'll definitely get the word out. But one thing we've done since we've created the task force is to have a curated track in each conference every year of NG 9-1-1 and GIS topics. It's been very well attended. We've in the past had some excellent roundtable discussions, some panel discussions, mostly not so much your traditional presentations, more so how can I make this work in my call center? How can I incorporate GIS best practices in my call center? You know, it's been a lot of back and forth between the two communities, and I think we've really made some great progress in getting the word out. We've also made great progress in educating our GIS users and GIS members as to what is required in a PSAP to support them in their mission. It's a different structure out there. it's basically two different worlds, but I think that we've been able to come together through the task force and through a lot of efforts with other organizations, NINA being one, and try to get the word out that you're not alone. This is not something that's impossible. There are people who have done it, and they're willing to share their experience and how they were successful in implementing NextGen. And as we know, NextGen is still evolving. There's a lot of stuff that's been set in place as far as standards go, but there's still some things that are evolving in the industry. So the task force endeavors to keep people up to date on that. And we really are just trying to do our best to bring everybody along in a calm, orderly fashion so that you don't get freaked out by all the differences between GIS and a 911 environment. They do come together in the computer-aided dispatch, and they do make it. They do enhance the call for service location experience for the call takers.
So, Catherine, if I can jump in for a second.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that URISA is not is URISA is not a standards body.
Right.
NINA is a standards body.
Correct.
But there are so many URISA members that have participated in those standards writing
Creation.
processes in the creation.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, just keeping in mind that all of the guidance that is being put out, that there are GIS professionals from every walk of, you know, every part of the industry. Right. That are participating. And really that helps what URISA does in terms of getting our message out.
That's correct. It's been a great experience for me personally to work on two different NINA GIS GIS work groups. They're NINA work groups that are discussing writing basically manuals for how to implement and how to set up GIS so that it works within the NextGen 911 environment. And I enjoy those conversations. We meet once a week on a conference call. And I mean, we dive down into the weeds and really discuss a lot of different aspects and experiences of the people on the call, all to inform this document that NINA will be publishing as when it's approved and finalized.
Hey, Carrie.
Yep.
This is Ian Von Ness. I just wanted to make a couple comments. One is that URISA's NG9-1-1 task force is really focused on, you know, helping educate folks. And if any of you have plowed into the NINA GIS data model, it's quite a beast, and it goes on for pages and pages. And so our webinars are just like taking one piece of it at a time. And one of the most important ones right off the get-go was looking at just PSAP boundaries and how we create this tapestry across the country that's all linked together and standardized. And we are going to continue really dissecting the GIS data model, and if there's things that you in the audience want us to do, specific aspects of the GIS data model that you would like to see a webinar on, let us know. So I'll hand it back to you, Carrie.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Ian. So Catherine actually has up on the screen a couple of the items that the task force has been working on.
Right, the webinar, Roadmap for Implementing NG9-1-1 GIS Data Model, Part 1. Stay tuned, there's more. I thought that was pretty interesting that Melissa titled it that way because, God, there's no way you can cover it all in certainly one webinar. And I'm encouraged and excited that, that the task force has taken on the pretty monumental job of trying to break it down and make it digestible for folks who need the assistance with it. So a couple of other things that URISA has been doing is in addition to the Next Gen 911 track in our conference program, we also offer workshops. There are a couple of different workshops that they've put together specifically for NG9-1-1. One of them that I've taught before was the NG9-1-1 and GIS workflow workshop, which was a full day workshop. And I believe, Carrie, you and Sandy have been involved with a couple of half-day workshops, kind of focusing more on, one of them was the data aspects, I believe, and I think it's been updated again for presentation in the fall in Baltimore. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And we're really excited about the fact that there is also a second workshop currently being developed that is going to be specific to the NG9-1-1 data model and understanding it. So less about the workflow, less about implementing Next Gen 911 into your GIS department, but really dissecting that that workshop, or excuse me, dissecting that data model in the form of a workshop.
Right. Well, I'm looking forward to that. And in addition, we also have monthly task force conference calls, the second Tuesday of every month. If you are interested in participating in the task force, you are certainly welcome. We welcome all takers, all comers, and certainly, you know, you don't have to be a member of URISA to take advantage of some of these options. We would hope you would be, but that's not a prerequisite. But we do want to try to reach as broad an expanse of folks as we can, just to let them know that help is out there, and we're looking for folks who can, like Ian said, ask us questions, provide suggestions, always looking to improve. So it's a great group of really smart people, and I'm really proud of the effort that URISA went to get it started, to get the task force started. And I can't say enough about how helpful it's been for me in my career. So that was pretty much all I had for slides about what we're doing for the task force at URISA. I guess we can open it up to questions, Carrie, if that's where we're at, or
Yeah, I currently don't have any questions in the Q&A box. If anybody has questions, please click on the taskbar at the bottom of the Zoom area, and you can go into the questions area. But I came prepared with some questions of my own for you, Catherine, and you, Ian.
And Ian, yeah.
Absolutely. So from a GIS perspective, what are the most critical changes that we have to make to face, you know, the future of Next Gen 911 effectively? Specifically, how will GIS play a part in that change? Would either of you like to throw your thoughts in on that particular question?
Ian, I've talked enough. Why don't you go first?
Sure. You know, I was very involved in my own county in the selection of a new dispatch system for our county that was NG9-1-1 compliant as possible. And it's a really interesting experience to go from a traditional world that's based on basically a tabular screen that's based on MSEG data, and to move that forward into, you know, fully functioning GIS-based dispatch system for 911. And I think one thing is, like, for us GIS professionals, we always think that we're the kind of center of the earth and all that stuff. And when you actually meet 911 folks and sit with them and listen to them dispatch with the traditional systems that are all tabular based, they only look at maps, you know, maybe 1 out of 20 calls. And so at first they're trying to figure out, why is this so important, you know, because they're used to doing things a certain way. But once one of these systems is implemented and they can actually see the location of calls and where they're coming from, and they can see all the emergency service providers and, you know, fire, police, and where they're at and which ones are on calls or not, they totally get into GIS and they start demanding a lot more of the GIS professional. And they want your data to improve, and so that they know that there's a median there that you can't make a left across, even though it shows it on the map that you could. You know, there's lots of things like that that really changes the, you know, call takers' experience once they are using a map-based system.
Yeah, I would like to second that. It's been pretty amazing to see how our telecommunicators on the floor here at Opcd have embraced the map. They, for the most part, they understand it. Although we are putting together a geography training class for new recruits and ongoing training. Some people on the floor are spatially aware, and they understand what they're looking at. Others need a little bit of orientation, I think. And so we're, as the GIS folks for Opcd, we're here to make that transition easy for them. It's incredible the job that call takers and dispatchers do on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. And I always keep forefront in my mind that I'm not trying to make their job harder. I'm not trying to make their job more confusing. I'm really trying to give them tools that will help them if they've got a phone call with somebody not responding, you know, to be able to locate that caller. And another thing we've used a lot that we just rolled out on the floor here is the aerial imagery. Not to drop any names, but we use pictometry, and we use their overhead, the ortho photos. Those have also been a great tool. Not so many people have played around with it, although there a lot of the EMS folks like to play around with it, and so they're pretty much ahead of the curve on, you know, on our floor. But just giving the call takers and dispatchers the tools they need to do their job better is basically the whole idea behind what we're trying to do with Next Gen, and just in each agency. So if that's, go ahead.
Sorry, Catherine, just we're coming up on the bottom of the hour, and we do have a couple of questions that hopefully we can answer before people head off to their next session. We have an in-house map with data from our in-house addressing database. Our CAD uses Google Maps for plotting the caller locations. We find the data on Google sometimes doesn't coincide with our data. Rhonda, that's a very typical thing. What is the fastest way to get Google to correct their information? I don't have an answer for you. I'm not sure if Catherine or Ian have any answers for you. I do know there are some places where you can contact Google, but you also need to understand that Google is in the business of business, not necessarily public safety.
So this is a big concern that many of us have struggled with for quite some time, because a lot of our call takers use Google Maps in their daily lives, you know, just to find grocery stores and stuff for themselves, you know, outside their work environment. And so they're pretty used to using it. at the National States GIS Council, we actually have an ongoing dialogue with all the private sector data providers, Google Maps, TomTom, Apple Maps, all those folks, to try to figure a way to standardize this information so it can be consumed, because basically government is the official data, and we get sued over it if it's not correct, and we need to find a way to get this information to the private sector. But it's still got a long ways to go, and right now all you can do is, I think, if you make your data open and consumable as much as possible, at least you've done your part on your end.
So Ian and Catherine, sorry, we are out of time. We're going over. We do have a number of other questions and comments that what I would like to do is have Catherine and Ian and I get together. We will put together some answers and make sure that they get emailed out to everybody that was on this call. I don't want to take away from our next session. So with that, I thank you both, Catherine and Ian, for joining us. I thank everybody who called in today, and hope you enjoyed the rest of the conference.
Thank y'all.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm trying to capture all of the questions so that we can, I can email them to you all, and we can answer them.
Okay, thanks, Carrie.
Awesome job. That was
Thanks.
perfect.
I hope it went well. Thank you.
It was perfect.
Great. I look forward to hearing from you, all right?
All right, appreciate it. Have a great
All right.
rest of your day.
Thank you, you too. Bye-bye.
All righty, bye.